We are going to talk about clauses. Okay. Do you remember what we are? What is our last objective?
The last objective or
Our
the
last
goals
objective.
or
Mm-hmm.
to identify the formal and casual conversation.
No, that was some months ago. No, I don't know. We talked about Julius Caesar's phrase. He said expression. He said, "Divide and conquer."
Clauses.
Clauses, exactly. And what is that?
Is to have or analyze each part of of a sentence to understand the whole.
More than a sentence. More than a sentence. The parts of a sentence is for basic analysis.
mm,
Bigger.
Well, a phrase, a complete phrase.
Phrase is a segment of a sentence, so nope. Bigger. No.
Paragraph. Okay, I don't know.
Paragraph. Exactly.
Paragraph.
Paragraph. When a person speaks and when a person writes, too much information needs to be divided. And we need to learn where the paragraphs are divided so we understand how to read very complex paragraphs. Right? Victor, we need your help. Do you remember anything of this?
About the definition of a clause, or
No. About the last objective. What we are going to study in the last month.
About the clauses. We study the definition of a clause and when we have to use a clause.
Kinda, but no. It's not about when.
Okay.
Clauses are used because we are not going to be we are not going to always have clauses in our minds when we are speaking or when we are reading. Clauses are only used to analyze. It's a way to analyze the speech. So the thing that we need to learn is to divide portions of information. That's going to be our last objective. Okay, last month's objective. Let me write over here. Last month's objective. Divide, not learn, to identify the portions of information and how a paragraph is formed. Because we understand sentences now, we understand complex sentences now, but we are only thinking in sentences. Now we need to think in the complexity of a paragraph, in the complexity of a full structure, a full speech. For that, we are going to use clauses, phrases, and sentences. Of course, clauses, phrases, and sentences is not something, it's not a tool. It's not that's the best definition. It's not a tool. It's just a way to understand the language. Do you see what I mean? Yeah, sure?
Okay.
Good. Good, because we are going to use the definition of dependent clauses. Where is it? I lost the lesson. Wait. Oh my god, where did I put it? Oh my god, I lost it. Just a second. There was a really good one. Okay, here it is. I almost lost it. Okay. The idea is that we are going to learn divisions, okay? And the first thing that happens in my mind is all the ideas that have a connector which, or a connector who, or a connector that, which is a very common way to understand the division. Let me show you. Let's start with the three types of clauses. Yes, let's talk about relative clauses. Okay. We're going to start with the three types of clauses, okay? Type number one. Using connectors such as who, whom, whose, which, and that. Or adverbs such as where, when, and why. This particular list indicates a division or a group of information that is talking about two different verbs that correspond to one person, right? For example, when you use a connector who, which all of them are going to be in blue because they are pronouns. They're considered pronouns, and I'm going to tell you why in a moment. Okay? All these words, let's say that we use it in a way that goes like this. 100 of the people who give 100%, 100% and 10 do not understand that. Let's understand this example for a second. If you analyze this example, you are going to have the subject, which is 100% of the people. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Right? 100% of the people. And then we are going to have the connector who and look at what happens when you have the connector who. You can connect two different verbs to the same subject. This give corresponds to the 100% of the people, but also the rest, also the do not understand math, that is also part of the subject. So how many verbs correspond to the same person?
How many what? Sorry.
How many verbs? How many verbs correspond to the same person?
Okay.
If this is the subject, then how many verbs correspond to the same person?
There are two.
There are two. The first one,
Give.
give. And the second one,
Understand.
incomplete.
Do not understand.
Do not understand. Exactly. So this is verb number two, verb number one. And this is verb number two. You see? This is important to know because when we are talking in Spanish or when we are typing, we are going to collocate commas because we are imagining a boss when you are reading. And it's a common mistake to type like this. 100% of the people who give 100%, comma, do not understand. This comma is incorrect. Why? Because the comma is an analysis that we do in Spanish. We use commas to make divisions in our speech, to make pauses in Spanish. In English, we don't use it like that. In English, we use commas to separate ideas. And this is not an idea. The expression do not understand math is not an idea. It's a verb. Therefore, or a better phrase, Therefore, we cannot use commas. Note. While thinking in Spanish, we usually use commas the same way we do in our native language. This is to indicate us. This is wrong in English. Commas are used to separate sentences, never phrases. Do you get it? Or you don't understand what we are speaking about?
Yeah, but in this case, this is this a sentence or no? It is a phrase. 100% of the people who give 110% do not understand math. The complete is a sentence,
Okay. You need to remember what are
right?
phrases. No. You need to remember what are phrases. We spoke about phrases some classes ago, and it was like this: grammatical phrases, noun phrase, verb phrase, adjective phrase, adverb phrase, prepositional phrase. A phrase is a group of words that work together, and it doesn't convey an idea. So, in this case, in the example, the pretty little flowers are blossoming in my garden. If I tell you, find the noun, the principal noun is flowers. But the word flowers is not by itself. You have the description little, you have the description pretty, and you have the article the. So all the blue section is a noun phrase, the pretty little flowers. In the case of phrases, verb phrases, for example, in this example it says, I have been working nonstop today. If I tell you, hey, find the verb, well, the verb phrase is these three words, because it's not only one word. You see what I mean?
Okay. Okay.
That's divisions. That's precisely the first division that we learned is groups of words that work together. So when you see this example, do not understand math, that's not a sentence. Do you agree? Because a sentence is a complete idea. You see?
Okay.
A sentence is a complete idea where phrases are not complete ideas, are just portions of information. That's why many people get confused with this, because in Spanish we're going to use the word phrase, frase. Y frase en español es algo que alguien dice, ¿no? La famosa frase de Maquiavelo, ¿no? This is not Spanish. In here, a phrase is a portion of words. A portion of information, a group of words.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I get confused because I was thinking about the definition of a phrase in Spanish.
Yep.
Instead of in English, but yeah, now it has a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Makes. Makes.
It makes a lot of sense. Right? Now, what about the comma? Do you understand why the comma is incorrect? Or why we would need a comma, or we would feel that we need a comma?
Yeah, because it is not a, for example, if I just say, do not understand math, it is not a sentence. It, okay, who don't understand math, no, or whatever. So it is a phrase. This do not understand math works with the complete phrase. So that's why we don't need the comma, because we are not separating a sentence. This is the complete phrase.
we're not spreading an idea, but there is another reason. Another reason. Something very, very important that we are not taking into consideration.
Because we have who?
The pause.
Okay.
Do you when you make a pause and when you're writing and you imagine a pause, what do you type?
A comma.
You type a comma, right? Exactly.
Yes.
In English, sometimes you are not going to do that. You know? And actually when you are reading, you are going to indicate a pause when there is not necessarily a comma. For example, in this idea, 100% of the people pause who give 100% pause do not understand that. You see, in the original idea, these two pauses have no visual indication. There's no visual cue for these two pauses. So we a very common mistake is that people read 100% of the people who give 100% do not understand math, you know, and they never pause to analyze what portion of information was the corresponding part and etc. Now you get the importance of this.
Yeah, and I think that it's a mistake that I have a lot in the TOEFL essay because
Everybody.
it's yeah, because you okay, you write in English, but you are thinking in your process as in Spanish, the way
In your
you
own language.
write in Spanish and the way you use, exactly the commas and dots and everything in Spanish. So you apply the same in English, but okay.
Yes. That's the first lesson I wanted to check. So the importance of it. Let's change the title. Importance of contrasting commas. Commas in our language are not the same as commas in English. When we are imagining a comma, technically in Spanish, in English, sorry, it's not going to be the same. Having this in mind, how can you identify the pause? You know, because if you tell me, teacher, hey, okay, commas are not going to indicate the pause. Commas are not going to indicate the breath. No? Then how do I identify the pause? Right? Well, you identify the pause by identifying clauses. You identify the pause by identifying clauses. So I want you to read these ideas, having into consideration that sometimes we need to make a specific pause where you find the following words: who, whom, whose, which, and that. And also where, when, and why. Okay? Let's read the first one. Help me, Victor. Read the first one.
Yes. It is not the employer who pays the wage. Employers only handle the money.
What do the employer pay?
Who pays the wages?
Plural.
Yes. It is not the employer who pays the wages. Employers only handle the money. It is the customer who pays the wages.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. So here you read correctly. It's not the employer who pays the wages. There was a pause there. That was correct.
Okay.
And then we have a period, so it's a very explicit pause.
Yes.
Good. Sophie, letter B. Oh, it's the same one. Let me erase that one. No, this one.
Okay, more than 8,000? 40? No, 840.
First,
I don't
you
know.
say this number, and then you say the three numbers. The three
Okay,
zeros.
8,000.
Mm.
40.
Three. When you
No.
have three numbers together, it's 100.
Uh-huh.
Six numbers together is 1,000.
Okay, but 84,000. More than
But it's
80.
not 84. You are missing
Okay,
100.
80, 8,400, 100,000 or no,
8,400.
800.
Okay, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? 84. Okay. You are saying 8,400. This is 8,400. It's different, you see? You need to associate the word 100 to the double zero and 1,000 to the three zeros. You're muted.
Okay, so 80, no, 84, no, 400,000, no.
8,400. This is 8,400. Double zero is 100. This is 8,400. Remove the 80. The problem is that you insist in 80.
84,000.
84,000 is this. You see?
Okay, so if I separate 840,000.
Exactly, 840,000.
Okay.
This is the one. Yeah, because you are insisting in the 84, 84, 84, 84. You stuck there. It's 840,000.
840,000. Okay. Okay. So more than 840,000 Vietnamese asylum seekers left the communist regime and arrived in the countries of Southeast Asia and Hong Kong. These people, who came to be known as the boat people, risked their lives at sea in search for freedom.
Very interesting.
Okay.
Here we have explicit commas. These people, comma,
Uh-huh.
came to be known as the boat people, comma, risked their lives at sea in search for freedom. These commas are used, they are called parenthetical commas. And parenthetical commas is commas that are used like parentheses. Usually,
Okay.
they need to be representing these connectors: who, whom, whose, which, and that. Parenthetical or parenthetical? Parenthetical. You get it? So, in the first example, where's the subject? In the first sentence.
The 840,000 Vietnamese.
It cannot be just a subject is not the same as a noun. The subject of the sentence is the person of the sentence, like who we are talking about. That's incomplete. And the subject starts at the beginning of the sentence and stops in the verb.
Okay, so until left. So the subject is 840,000 Vietnamese asylum seekers.
Incomplete. Still.
And then there's the verb. Oh.
Incomplete still. It's still incomplete. Help, Victor? Do you know?
We have to ask more than.
Exactly. You need to add more than. We cannot omit the more than. So the full subject is more than 840,000 Vietnamese asylum seekers, and the principal noun is seekers. What type of seekers? Asylum seekers. What type of asylum seekers? Vietnamese asylum seekers. How many Vietnamese asylum seekers? 840,000 Vietnamese asylum seekers. Extra information, more than, that is giving me information about context. So the subject is all that, and then we have left the communist regime and arrived in the countries of Southeast Asia and Hong Kong. And you have two verbs. Verb number one, which one is it?
Left.
Left. Excellent.
Left.
Left. And verb number two?
Arrived.
Excellent. There we go. So you can see a full sentence. In the next sentence, we have these people who came to be known as boat people risked their lives at sea in search for freedom. So this is exactly the function of these words. Who, whom, whose, which, that, where, when, why. Connect two verbs to one person. No? So here you have who is the subject in the second sentence. Letter B. Hello?
These people.
Excellent. Yes. The subject is these people. Verb number 1.
Came.
Came. Verb number 2.
Known.
Wrong.
No.
Known is a description in this case.
Risk.
Wrist. After the comma, you see? So if you remove the commas, you need to make a pause in these two segments, in the first verb and in the second verb.
Okay.
See? Let's try with the next one. Go, Victor, read letter C.
Yes. She had plenty of acquaintances.
Okay, that word doesn't exist. Okay.
Acquaintances.
Here are the symbols.
Acquaintance.
The second syllable. Quay.
Acquaintance.
Acquaintance. Very good.
Acquaintance. Acquaintance.
You see?
Acquaintance. Okay.
Acquaintance is a person who likes to, how can I tell you? A person who you know, but is not a close friend. For example, let's say that I have very good friends from high school, no? But the friend of my friend that is not really related to me, but I identify his face. That person is an acquaintance of mine.
Okay.
You see? That's the one. So let's read again.
She has plenty of acquaintance, but no
Only
friend.
one acquaintance, plural?
Eh?
Acquaintance is only one. And plenty of is plural.
Yes, of course. She had plenty of acquaintances.
Excellent.
Yes, but no friends. Very few people whom she met were significant to her. They seemed part of her, undistinguished.
That's correct.
Yes.
I think the second idea, you can indicate a pause. Let's read the second sentence again.
The second, they seem part of her.
The second.
Come on. Very few. Very few people whom she met were significant to her.
Okay, there was a second pause that you could make because we have met is a verb, no? And
Yes.
then were is a verb.
Of course.
So you cannot read met where.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You need to separate these two.
Yes. Very few people whom she met were significant to her.
Perfect. And now what is the past of meet?
Met.
Yes, again.
Very few people whom she met were significant to her.
Let's go. That's the one.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Right. Very few people whom she met were significant to her, and these pauses make it more understandable, no?
Yes.
Right? Because if we read without the pause, we don't understand the message. That's
Of course.
precisely the importance of clauses.
Yes.
Good. Good. I think letter C was the example that I was looking for. Good. Let's go with letter D. Sophie.
Occasionally, mother, whom we seldom saw in the house, had us meet her at Lois. Lois. It was a long, dark tavern at the end of the bridge near our school.
In this case, we have explicit commas, whom we seldom saw in the house. But it's very interesting that the commas in letter C, no, the commas in letter D indicate the same pause as the lack of commas in letter C. In letter C, we don't have commas, but we need to make a pause to make it understandable. You see? Sometimes commas are used when the information is too big. There's too much information. So we need to separate those two. Okay. What about letter E, Victor?
Yes. The fatal metaphor of progress, which means leaving things behind us, has utterly obscured the real idea of growth, which means leaving things inside us. Inside us.
That one was easy too, because there was explicit commas.
Yes.
The final metaphor of progress, which means leaving things behind us, has certainly obscured that. Yeah, that one is easy. It becomes really tricky when we are using that in a real article. That's what. First, I am teaching you clauses, and then we're going to move to a real article so you can contrast it with a true language. Okay. Sophie, letter F.
This is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. Okay.
Conjunctions like but, and, so are usually followed after a comma. See, so in this case you have but there's a pause that we can make. Can you read after the but again, Sophie?
Sorry, teacher, can you repeat?
Can you read after the but again?
After the but a means by which we arrive at that goal.
But that means I like your pause. But that means by which this goes together. That was a good reading. Do you understand the ideas? Do you have any question on vocabulary? Yeah.
So I understand that we can choose to either use comma or not use.
Not really.
Right?
No. We
Not
use
really.
parenthetical commas when the information is way too long.
Okay.
You know, when the clause, the relative clause, who, whom, etc., has way too much information. So then this is when you will consider to use a comma.
Okay.
Right? Probably the parenthesis is way too big and way too important to say, so we need to use a comma. In the case of the letter C, for example, very few people whom she met, this is not a lot of information. It's a very simple pronoun, person, verb.
But in the case of letter D, there is not a lot of information too.
Yeah, we have in the house, which is an extra information from, this is a prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase gives us location.
Okay.
So now it becomes important to provide a comma so we can separate all that. Because we can say, in the house had us met, and that is incorrect.
Okay.
You see? That can get a little bit confusing.
Okay, so it depends on the idea. If the idea is simple, we can omit commas.
Exactly.
If there is if it has a lot of information that can be confused, or I understand, we have to use commas.
We have to use commas in that case. Exactly.
Okay.
That's the one. And the first thing that we need to remember is how to use these clauses. The second type of clauses also goes together with this topic. The second type is called dependent relative, independent clauses. Okay, now let's read these ones. Okay. These are also clauses or extracts from other texts. The second line is a reference. You don't need to read the reference. Okay? Let's try to read it together, and let's go number one. Victor.
Yes, the average man does not want to be free. He simply wants to be safe.
That's a phrase from a book, right? These are called independent clauses because an independent clause is very similar to a sentence. An independent clause will be separated either by a comma or by a period. In the first example, the average man does not want to be free. It's clearly a sentence, and at the same time, you need a second sentence to back up the information in the first. That's why it's technically not considered a complete idea. You need a second sentence to complete the idea. You know what I mean? So a clause provides complete idea. An independent clause provides a complete idea if it's together with a second one. If you say the average man does not want to be free and you finish there, you're like, okay, why do you mention that? You know, the second idea provides that help. Let's try to read the second example. Sophie.
In an era when the average man was about 5 feet tall, the new emperor stood 6 feet taller.
That's right.
What is power?
It's a number.
Oh,
1, 2,
okay.
3, 4.
Sorry.
What is 4? And when you say feet,
Okay.
we are talking about the height of the person. 5 feet tall, right?
Yeah. No.
In an era when the average man was about 5 feet tall, technically you can complete the idea there, right? But then you need a second portion of information that can back up the first. This is why we use a comma. If you analyze the structure, after the comma we have a person-verb complement. See? Independent clauses, let me take a note over here. These type of clauses are separated by either a period or a comma. They are called independent because independently, very different from the others, they can be independent sentences. You know, these are usually confused with sentences. The difference is that these don't convey a complete idea by themselves. They need a second one as backup. Okay, let's read the next one. Go, Victor, number 3.
Yes. I was born when you kissed me. I died when you left me. I live a few weeks while you loved me.
Damn. Wonderful. That was a beautiful line. That was when you kissed me, I said when you left me. I'll live a few weeks while you love me. These sentences or these clauses, as you can see, if you use a comma or a period, no, it will be better to use a period in this case, because if you use a comma, it gives the sensation that you are going to make a parenthesis. So it's much better to separate these 3 ideas, which is a very common mistake when you are writing. We usually use commas with very short sentences or very short independent clauses. Very, very common. Use commas as few as possible, as few commas as possible, okay? Never make it wide. It's better to use a period. When in question, use a period. That's my point. When you have a question, when you're not sure what to use a period. Finish the idea and open another one. Okay. Next, Sophie.
Okay.
He was a stocky, dark man who wore a snap-brim hat like George Kraft.
Again, what was he?
The next morning, he was a stocky, dark man who wore a snap-brim that
Men are plural.
man.
Man, exactly.
He was a stocky, dark man. Sorry.
Mhm.
He was a stocky, dark man who worked
Pronunciation?
at Snap
Man,
Brim,
open.
who worked, he was a
Man, I
stocky
prefer man.
dark man.
Man, exactly.
Man. He
It's
was a
like-
stocky dark man
Exactly.
who wore a snap brim hat like George Raft. The next morning, he hung around the store until we returned from church.
Yes. Did you see that automatically you use the pause when you say the next morning and you made a pause there? That was natural.
Yes.
That's thinking in English. The next morning, he hung around the store. Exactly. Good. Good, good, good. We are going to see in the next classes that commas are omitted and are put usually after time expressions and place expressions. So in the next day, after a while, once upon a time, comma, comma, comma. You know, but that's in the next classes.
Okay.
So if you want to read a little bit more of this, I'm gonna pass you the website that I am reading about this. So good, so good. And we are going to check the next 5 of clauses, which are going to be dependent clauses, right? A very, very good way is to contrast these two and to analyze the position of commas, to see how the phrases are divided, because we are going to read an article, a Vox article. And this is where things are going to get very, very interesting. If we see an article like this, I want you to read perfectly every single clause and every single sentence so you can start analyzing the language in a better way. You get it? That's in the next classes. Right now, we're doing a good job, guys. It's a good introduction.
It's true.
All right. I'll see you then tomorrow. And I'll see you on Tuesday, by the way. Okay? Monday, no classes. I see you on Tuesday. Have a very good weekend.
Thank you, teacher.
You too.
Thank
See you
you,
later.
teacher. See you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
See you later.
Thank you.